Hey, this is Andrew Rusnak, founder of Charlotte Content Marketing, and this is the Charlotte Content Marketing Podcast. Whether you're joining us on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we welcome you and I thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to have a little bit of podcastception because what I want to talk about is how to come up with topics for podcasts. How do we come up with things to talk about for podcasts? A lot of what we're gonna go over today is these are things that apply to really any type of digital content. Some of these tips are really crossover, but then some of them are going to be more specifically just for podcasts. The thing with podcasting is this: so if you're just recording a podcast for yourself, your friends, your family, a hobby, whatever, you can talk about whatever, it doesn't matter. That's your thing, and be as creative and free-flowing as you want to be. But when we're podcasting for business, when we're using podcasting as a marketing tool, we need to obviously we need to plan out what we're going to say. And even though I don't always do as good a job of that as I would like, I try to plan these things out. Once again, this is that podcastception. I try to plan these things out, but we need to have a purpose behind what we're trying to do. So when we're coming up with topics, those topics also have to have a purpose. We don't want to just throw a dart at the map, and wherever it lands, that's what we're going to talk about. I suppose you could do that, and depending on your map and maybe your aim with the dart, that could work. But really, we do need to be strategic in coming up with topics that we're going to talk about. So today, I really want to cover how do we come up with things to talk about on a podcast, specifically a podcast for business, for marketing purposes, for digital marketing. So before we get into all that, now there are three main types of topics when it comes to podcasting. The first one is trending topics. The second one is going to be evergreen topics. And then the third type of topic or content is going to be interviews. So with trending topics, obviously these are things that are trending. These are things that people are talking about. And the reason why we want to cover trending topics is because, once again, because people care about them, obviously, but that's a chance for us to use our podcast to get in the moment, okay? And there's an SEO component to that too, particularly when you put your podcast on your brand's website, and you're promoting it through that as well. But when we're going after trending topics, these don't necessarily have to be topics that are directly related to our brand. What we need to do is try to find a way to work our brand into the trending topic. So, for instance, if your brand sells tennis shoes, I always use the tennis shoe example. I don't know why. I guess it's easy. AI is a trending topic that people are talking about. Well, tennis shoes and AI don't really have anything directly to do with one another. However, you could come up with a podcast topic where you're going to talk about how AI is used in AI advancements in the equipment used to manufacture or design tennis shoes, or how AI and machine learning are being used in sports where athletic shoes are used, how the shoes are being analyzed by AI to help athletes perform better, something like that. But the point being that you can always try to find a way to capitalize on a trending topic, even if your brand and your products and services don't necessarily have anything to do with that. The key is that what we want to be doing is attaching ourselves to that trending topic so that people who are interested and who are searching for that topic online then come across our podcast. And then also what that does is it gives a more robust presence on the web for your brand as well. Now, evergreen topics are topics that are going to be relevant no matter what's going on. So it doesn't matter what's trending and what's not trending. These are timeless. They're evergreen. Topics that will always be of interest to people for your brand and your products and services, the industry that you serve. And so the thing with evergreen content is we still need to go back and review it from time to time, and this pertains more to written content because podcasts are more serialized, and so we're not necessarily going to go back 3 years or 5 years and update a podcast. We can. But we're not necessarily going to do that because it's a little bit more of an undertaking to do that. And it's often better to just let that stand in its own time. With written content, we can go back and update it. But the whole point is that we want to choose topics that are going to continue to be relevant. And these are opportunities where you can really demonstrate your expertise. These are oftentimes going to be more broad view, high level overviews of topics. And we're not necessarily going to get too detailed and granular and in the weeds with things. I mean, we can, depending on the industry and who your customers are and what they're interested in. But oftentimes evergreen content is going to be more high level overview kind of stuff. And then when it comes to interviews, once again, if you're just doing a podcast as a hobby for yourself and your friends or a group that you're a part of online or something like that, have on anybody you want, whatever. But when it comes to interviews for your business podcast, it can be tempting to want to say, okay, well, I know this person, and I think they're a great, they're an awesome individual, and let's have them on the podcast. What you really need to think about is how are your interviews going to benefit your listeners, i.e., your customers? What does an interview add to the listening experience of a customer? How does it bring them closer to your brand? How does it allow them to connect closer with your brand and your products and services? But at the same time, interviews also are a chance to allow you to demonstrate authority and expertise and build trust, because if you're having on people that you know or even people that you don't know that you pitch to come onto your podcast, and these are people who maybe are prominent people in your industry or prominent people in the community, that builds trust and authority for your brand. One of the things though that we try to capitalize on is when you have someone on your podcast, when you have a guest on your podcast, you have the opportunity to then multiply your audience, because they're going to tell their audience, hey, I was on, the XYZ podcast. Here's a link to it. Tune in. And you've now introduced your brand to their audience and their brand to your audience. And so there can be a trade-off there as well. And so that's an added benefit to interviews as well. Okay, so we've covered what the main types of topics are, the main types of podcast content, but then how do we find things to talk about? For instance, with trending topics, how do we find what's trending? There are a number of different ways to do that. And one of the best is to check out Google Trends. Google Trends is a website that you can go on. You can type in a keyword. It will show you by country and by date. It'll chart it out on a graph, the popularity of that term and then it will also show you related search terms, and you can kind of keep going down the rabbit hole. And that's a good way to kind of see interest over time, and try to find out whether one thing is more popular than another. One search term is more popular than another, and that can help you find trending topics to talk about. Twitter, and really all social media platforms. I mean, you can type in keywords into Facebook or whatever, and it will bring up posts. That's what you want to search for is posts, not people or places or pages or whatever. But posts that include the keyword. Twitter is really good about trending. They even have a section for trending topics, or trending hashtags, but same difference. But by using social media, now you not only get to see what people are talking about, but then you can also see in the context that they're talking about. And that's important because you may not know what something is, but you want to kind of attach your brand to it. Well, if it has a negative connotation, let's say it's trending, but it's trending for the wrong reasons, you want to know that context before you start diving into it. Because you don't want to associate your brand with something that's trending for the wrong reasons. But Twitter and social media in general are also good ways to look for trending topics. Now, when it comes to evergreen content, you can use, obviously your own expertise, and you can rely on that. But if you're having a hard time coming up with, let's say you have a topic, but then you're not sure, okay, well, I feel like I've covered the basics of this topic, the general overview of this topic. What more is there to talk about? Go to Wikipedia, put that topic in Wikipedia, and take a look there. And once again, you can go down the rabbit hole of all kinds of subtopics and subpages, and how certain subjects are subdivided all along a page, and you can find angles that you may not have considered before, and by searching through Wikipedia. And another way is to use Google and search for the topic that you want to talk about, and then put in like beginner or how to, or how to start, or something like that. Basically, add on some search terms to your keywords there that you want to talk about, your topic terms, so that you're looking to find out how much people are searching for that high level stuff. So how-tos and beginner tips and things like that. And there you can find questions. Reddit and Quora are also good sources for things like that, where you can kind of see what the topics are that people are asking about on various pages connected to your industry. And if you see a topic come up about, how to do X, Y, and Z, or what's the best way to get into X, Y, and Z over and over and over again, you can know that that's maybe something to pursue. Another thing to consider is message boards and forums dedicated to your industry or adjacent industries. Take a look on there, and it's all that user-generated content, because once again, the whole point of the podcast is that we want to connect with listeners because we want to convert them into customers. So what we're trying to do is connect with them by answering their questions and positioning your brand as the authority and as the trusted friend, and form that connection. So you can do that with, user-generated content on, any number of resources like message boards and forums as well. And then lastly, we talked about with interviews about having guests on that are going to resonate with your listeners. So we're not just inviting on Bob because we think he's a cool guy, even though Bob might be a cool guy. I don't know. I've known some all right Bobs in my day. I've known some jerks too, but that's besides the point. What we want to do is we want to invite on guests that are going to connect. And one of the ways that we can do that is we can encourage our guests to tell stories. Okay. And when I talk about storytelling, and I've mentioned this before in previous podcasts, and I think we've written blogs about it, But when we're talking about storytelling, we're talking more about narratives. Okay, so yeah, storytelling, we can tell a specific personal story, and that's great. But more or less, what we're trying to do is take someone on a journey through a narrative. So, I mean, we have a beginning, a middle, and an end. We have a challenge. We have the hero rising up to meet that challenge. We have some stumbles along the way, and then we have the big payoff, the big finish, which is the solution, which should be your brand or your products and services came to the rescue and saved the day in the end. So, we can tell personal stories, and then we can also develop narrative-driven stories that maybe are not necessarily related to any one specific individual or one specific occurrence, but are just an overall story of how a product can save the day. And then lastly, take a look at what your competition is doing. Take a look at what's the content that they're covering, and is there a way that you can do things differently? But more importantly, is there a way that you can do things better? Okay, because what we don't want to do is copy exactly what they're doing, for a number of reasons. But if we can find a way to do what they're doing slightly differently but better, that's going to give us some topics to talk about. So we're going to take what they're doing, and we're going to find ways to build upon that and do it even better. So those are just some of the ways that you can come up with things to talk about for your podcast. And those are not hard and fast rules by any means. Your podcast is meant to be a creative space, but at the same time, it's meant to connect. And so different industries connect with their customers in different ways. So there's no like one size fits all. There's no exact formula for how to come up with podcast topics or how to run a podcast. You can listen to other podcasts and watch other videos and stuff to take inspiration for kind of the flow of things, and maybe that would give you some ideas. But at the end of the day, this is your podcast. These are your customers, and these are the connections that you're forming. These are the relationships that you're building, and so you're free to approach that how you see fit. We're happy to provide guidance at Charlotte Content Marketing. You can contact us by email at hello@charlottecontentmarketing.com. You can also give us a call at 704-323-6762, and we'll be happy to provide a no obligation free consultation and just kind of sit around and chat and learn a little bit about what you've got going on, and you can learn a little bit about us and about how we can help with content with podcast production services in the greater Charlotte area. So we would love to talk with you about that. But if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to hit us up on socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm not even going to mention the other one. I'm done with that. But thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, my name is Andrew Rusnak. I am the founder of Charlotte Content Marketing, and I look forward to joining you in the next one.